Here at the blockchain conference in Amsterdam, I'm sitting with Jon McGlone from Wolfram. And Wolfram is, of course, an unbelievable important company, 700 people worldwide, and they are the math wizards. They have beautiful software which makes the math go around. And it used to be always a software product, but now they have a plugin in Chatgpt. I'm going to talk a little bit about the company and then how Chatgpt can be used with Wolfram together, and also how you can make your own plugin, because that's possible too. Jon, how long have you been with the company?
Oh, about 32 years at this point.
32 years, okay, unbelievable. That is a long time. Tell me a little bit about the company. When was it started, by who? We all know Mr. Wolfram, but not everybody does.
Yeah, so it was started just a few years before I joined, about 2 years before I joined. Stephen is a physicist and he needed tools to do his job, couldn't find anything he was happy with. Typical Stephen Wolfram said, I'll just make my own and it'll be better. Yep. And so he built Mathematica, first version in about 88 or so, and it took off because it...
and now all the universities are using it, and ASML here, and everybody who does complicated calculation goes there. And then LLM came to the market last year, and then suddenly Wolfram was one of the first plugins which were available because LLMs couldn't calculate, and then with Wolfram it can be extremely smart. You can have all kinds of math functions and that kind of stuff. Why were they so early? Why were you so early with LLMs and with Chatgpt?
Well, OpenAI invited us to be the first round of plugins, and they recognised exactly what we see, which is that our symbolic AI world of computation and LLMs have completely opposite strengths and weaknesses. That the LLMs are fluent in a way that we've never been able to manage, but they hallucinate, they don't know how to do maths, they can't compute things. We can compute all that stuff, but we can't be fluent, and it's a perfect match together.
What happened in the company since you went together with Chatgpt and you became much more known to the next to the little world which already knew about you?
Well, it's opened up a whole bunch of new services conversations where we're working on all kinds of interesting projects where that are mostly either chat driven, which is the obvious ones, but also projects that are now able to handle unstructured data in a way that used to be really difficult. So doing things like taking patient notes and extracting the facts out to do traditional data science on now becomes really easy in comparison to the before, because you've got the LLM to take the unstructured data and structure it, and our computation to do the data science on it, and you get a workflow that makes it amenable.
So I'm using Wolfram in a very trivial way, make this graph about this function, or take this XLS file and basically plot out some trends things, which is very handy. What are non-trivial ways? Like you say, unstructured patient data. How can I would never have thought that Wolfram would be useful for that. How does it work?
Well, the unstructured problem is the bit the LLM helps with, because you got free-form notes that a doctor makes that says, oh, the person was depressed and I talked to them about this and I gave them this drug. You just want to know drug and effect, and get these values out. So the LLM is very good at that. Yeah. What we're very good at then is taking that data and cleaning it, doing statistics on it, doing machine learning on it, doing social network analysis on the relationships between the patients, all these things that are computational that we've been building up libraries for doing.
So give me some non-trivial usage which you've seen around to use with LLMs.
Oh my goodness. One interesting one that I was working on was taking transcriptions of speech to text in a medical context. Yeah. And the speech recognizer, it's too hard to train on medical text because there's no training data. Yeah. And so it gets things wrong. It says peacemaker instead of pacemaker. Yeah. And actually with the LLMs and the integration, we can bring in that text, pre-process it a little bit, ask the LLM to do the transcriptions and fix that, because it can be taught in a in-context learning way.
Oh, you can really use it to correct errors in the speech recognition?
Yeah, so we've got this abstraction on the idea of in-context learning. So the idea is you give it examples. If you say peacemaker should be pacemaker, and you give it 2 or 3 examples, and it sort of gets it from all of its knowledge of language, and then you can show it things it's never seen, and it's like supervised learning, except you don't need much data because it's bringing all of its knowledge baggage from its real world experience.
I would have never expected that. Now, I have a question. If I have a roof company, and they're all about insulation, and they're about chances of having leakage, and where could be the problem if they have a problem. How could I use Wolfram? What could be something they could use Wolfram for?
Well, that's one of those typical industries that's got a slight mismatch between the technicality that, underlying the calculations of energy values for materials is reasonably complicated, but people who are not trained in maths, they're trained in building and engineering, and so having an interface that allows somebody to be able to interrogate complex underlying models without ever having to go near the maths, that's a perfect sort of chat type example where we can hear what they're saying, which is this a good roof, or do I need thicker insulation, qualitative things. The chat can then take the parameters it knows about the materials or whatever you've told it, pass that to a complex model that they don't need to understand, but they can interpret the results. It says, it's got this U value, or you need 12 inches of insulation, or whatever the response is that they know what to do with.
Yeah, and how? Okay, that sounds fantastic. So you need to build a model in Wolfram, and then you need to connect it to LLMs through a plugin. Is that really difficult?
Well, it depends on the model.
Suppose you have the model.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a known problem, it's a solved problem, then no. We've got a language that knows all the maths you could ever want. Yeah. So I suspect that one's mostly arithmetic, but if it involves calculus, we've got that. If it involves projecting time series, we've got that. Yeah. Everything's built in, so it's a great language for implementing algorithms.
Okay. Suppose I have the model, okay? I have some model, and the smart people who know everything about roof and insulation and problems, well, I put the model. How can I put it into Chatgpt? How does it work?
Okay, well, first of all, you want to code up the model so that it's computable. You could do that yourself. We just license the technology and it's all documented, but we can do that for you. So my team can come along and read.
I tell you the problem, and you basically make the model for me.
We serve that up on an API, and then we have a mechanism of declaring to the LLM that this is an API that can answer certain questions, and it's up to the LLM then when you're talking to it to go, oh, I know Wolfram can answer this for me. It calls us, we do the calculation, we answer back, and the LLM takes the answer we give it and weaves it into a sensible answer to the original question.
Okay. And would that question and answer, would that be a separate plugin, or would that work inside the normal Wolfgang plugin?
You would typically probably have more than one plugin installed. So you might have the general Wolfram one, so it can do things like make a graph of that, or those kind of very generic calculations that the Wolfram plugin that is available already. And you would add in this roofing plugin so that the LLM would switch between them as it saw fit.
Yeah. So you would have your own separate plugin. So that means also it could be your own copyright and your own this and that. Is that those kinds of solutions? Would that be thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Oh, I think if we're talking about things like roof insulation problems, the services work would be probably a couple of days. I'm imagining it's pretty.
A couple of days, very.
A couple of thousand to build out the solution, and then you've got your GPT fees on top, which are maybe a penny a time, and API fees to us, which is probably a penny a time kind of level. So it'd be really cheap once it's deployed.
Can you show me a little bit how that would work? I mean, you give me a little bit of a demo.
Yes, I can log into my computer.
Interesting to see you can do your own plugin in Chatgpt and connect like Wolfram and calculate everything. And so here, what do I see here?
So here is me creating a custom plugin for Chatgpt. And this is income tax calculation according to UK tax rules. It's got an endpoint called tax due, and it's got a function which is going to live on our servers that takes an income and it does a bit of arithmetic to work out how much tax is due and returns numbers. So that's the modeling that we would have to do with the roofs. You then get an endpoint that you share with Chatgpt, and you have to click a couple of permissions to say you trust it to not steal your data or whatever. And then after that, this is an example of when I used it. I said, how much tax would I pay on some big income in the UK? Yeah. And you see here, this little blob appears to I figured out that the tax plugin would be useful here. It sent the number across to us. We've sent back the values that it's then used to answer the question with its fluency. And if you're building your own custom interface using the GPT one, we would do that in a similar way. This is the code you would write. In this case, I'm answering a query that I've coded, which is write a batch code for new. And I'm telling it there's a tool available for answering populations of cities, so that would be the bit that will roof calculations, and you can see back Chatgpt has written it all the way down to here and then stopped and said, I could really do with a number at this point, and it's called our code to get 2.7 million, carried call us the second time for the 8.8 million, and then it's written the rest of the essay. So that could be behind your own web interface or however you want to dress it.
Okay, so there you see it. It's really not that complicated to make your own plugin, and you can basically use the intelligence of a modeling in the background. Really interesting. Jon, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure.